Thank you very much, and pleasure to be here. So yeah, Wiz & Co, we help brands and retailers create deeper connections with customers to increase market share. I'm absolutely obsessed with customer behaviour and how this really translates into scaling a brand. I speak regularly on the topic and also contribute to numerous publications, including Cosmetics Business, Trend Reports, WGSN, The Guardian, New Magazine, as some recent publications. I work with a cross-section of brands, from global brands and retailers, beauty tech businesses, and also indie brand founders. For me, it's not about the size of the business, but it's the ambition. And they all share the same values. So a desire to disrupt and innovate, which is probably why you're here today. Brands. So I've seen brands at all stages of their development, and I've also seen the rise and fall of many. And I really love helping brands combine innovation, creativity, and also commerciality to get results. So we're going to be taking questions at the end as well. So please add any questions that you've got into the chat. I'll answer as many as I can. And please also connect with me on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I'd love to hear from you afterwards what your key takeaway and any actions you're going to make in your business. So yeah, today, hot topic: how do you go from indie brand to cult brand? And £1 million question. And if I had the exact science to this, I think I'd be a millionaire. So is there a secret formula? If only, but there's lots of different elements that do make a successful cult brand. And I'm going to talk about some of these elements today and some actions that you can implement into your business. So I'm in quite a unique position. I have been pitched to thousands of times by brands, as you can imagine, as a former buyer. I've also been in the lucky position to see the strategies from the biggest global brands over the years. So put simply, I kind of know what works, because it's all about connecting with the customer. When I was at Selfridges, brands scaled really, really quickly, or they could drop off a cliff overnight, and often way before they did in the rest of the market. Because ultimately Selfridges is at the forefront of trends, and as a buyer it was kind of my job to be predicting the future and I suppose managing the rise and fall of these and reacting very quickly. What I love about the beauty industry, it's so dynamic and it is changing so fast, particularly over the last 12 months. We've seen some huge shifts in customer behaviour, what people are purchasing and why. And what's so exciting is it's easier than ever for brands to reach customers and for customers ultimately to find and discover new brands as well. There's now a massive transparency over who owns brands. So social media has had a dramatic influence, and ultimately consumers are leading the change. So it's so important to put the customer at the heart of your strategies. And it's less about the brands with the biggest marketing budgets, because now they're starting to lose market share, which is what I love about the industry, is kind of how quickly it's changing. So it's an exciting time for many brands. But ultimately, the question is, how do you get the cut through? So today, I'm going to kind of talk about three themes. So what does it take to make a cult brand? I'm going to talk about the rise of indie brands and also what you can do to increase your market share. So what really does make a cult brand? We suddenly see them popping up and we're like, wow, where did these brands come from? They almost seem like an overnight success, if only. But actually, what makes a cult brand is its true point of difference. And I think when every brand starts, they all think, I've seen a gap in the market, there's something that I can't find myself, so I'm going to create this and launch it. What I would say, whatever stage of your journey you're at with your business, is really, really start to refine what your point of difference is and how you communicate that to the customer as well. But also, how does it fit into the market? What is your brand truly doing differently? And what I found really interesting, I think everybody knows Charlotte Tilbury. Charlotte Tilbury suddenly popped up. All of the big brands were really, really taken aback by this and just couldn't quite get their hands around or pivot quickly enough to, I suppose, deal with the market share that they started to lose. And it did cause quite a bit of confusion with their competitors. But actually, what Charlotte did is she simplified a problem for the masses. Because yes, there were hundreds of makeup brands out there already, but Charlotte came in and really disrupted things and shook things up really quickly. And one of the problems was that she was solving for customers was lots of people wanted this glamorous smoky eye. It was probably one of the most Googled things on YouTube. But actually, most people would would Google this, give it a try, and then look like they were a panda. So she actually created a solution and a very, very easy way to shop and educate people on how to create this smoky eye. So with her, the 10 looks, people being able to pick very quickly what they wanted to look like, and the education through digital, through the one-to-one consultations, and also like a sequence of products to be using. So she actually thought about, how am I going to sell this product in a different way? Which was super, super interesting. I think the other opportunity that she had as well was actually, most brands would people would go to a counter or buy online and they'd buy 1 or 2 products, average transaction value probably under £50. But Charlotte's solution was like, you buy this whole kit and you look like this person, and she could create that true transformation for a customer. So again, it was about the customer, it was about their transformation and how they felt about themselves. So her average transaction value was all of a sudden 3 or 4 times the price of everybody else. She also positioned herself as a digital first brand. So at the time when she launched, a lot of the other brands were kind of starting their direct to consumer journey, but were still very reliant on retailers. And although she launched with some key retailers such as Selfridges while I was there, actually she used that as a positioning tool to create the global positioning and the desirability to then leverage some of her direct to consumer business as well. And of course, her profile as well. She's a very, very visible founder, which is super exciting to people. She was on the shop floor, she's connecting with people, she's constantly online and there digitally. And it was all about bigging up her profile, and so everybody knew all the experience she had in the industry. So it's really interesting thinking about a brand like that that's just suddenly popped out of nowhere. But ultimately, of course, she had a lot of backing behind her, a lot of investment. But actually, what she was doing is she was creating an emotive connection with a customer. She was providing a solution for their problems, and she was creating a transformation. And as a result, she then created this amazing community and this hype around a brand. So those are some of the key things that you need to really be thinking about as you're scaling your business, is how do you start to create that emotive connection? Because people buy from people, and actually it's that excitement that people really, really want to see. And that's where these kind of cult brands are really winning at the moment. So it's really about that hype. It's about that word of mouth where suddenly everybody is talking about a brand. You're seeing and you're hearing it everywhere, which is super exciting. So I'm going to explain more about how you get to that point at the end. So let's talk about the rise of indie brands. So the market has changed so dramatically, and there's more brands popping up all the time. This is super exciting, but then again, it's much harder to get cut through. But it is, in one way, easier for customers to discover new brands that align to their values and align to their needs. And actually, people like buying from people. And in some ways, it's easier to discover things, but actually some ways it's harder to as well, because you're competing with a lot of the other indie brands as well. And what's been really exciting about the last 12 months and the pandemic that we've been through is actually people are really thinking about where they're spending their money. They would rather be giving their money to a small business, whether that's shopping locally or it's an independent brand founder. So if customers can discover you and they start to understand why your brand resonates with them, then it's really, really an opportunity for you to be able to kind of build some leverage and kind of gain more customers. One of the things I have seen and I see as a common, I suppose, question or challenge with independent brands is, I think, brands like Glossier, who is, I mean, absolutely one of the most famous and exciting D2C brands out there, is this perception of how easy it is now to grow a direct-to-consumer business. And it can be if you have that experience, and also if you have that funding as well. But it does take time, and it can take a lot of budget as well for digital marketing. And actually what Glossier did, they obviously had a lot of funding. I think they had almost $1 million before they launched the product, but they had created an amazing community and a network of people before they'd even launched. And this is something that I always say to brands, even if they haven't launched, is how do you create that audience, that community, and how do you start talking to them about the problems that they have or the solutions that you could provide for them before you even launch a product? So actually, I believe it is having, I suppose, a true marriage of direct to consumer, but also using some of key retailer players to be able to position your brand globally, get the validation of the buyer, the retailer, and for customers as well. Also, the rise of indie brands is the brand founder is absolutely integral to the brand, and being a visible brand founder, telling your story, talking about your why, and creating that emotive connection is your number one power. There's so many brands out there, but actually there's only one of you. So you absolutely must be a visible founder. And this can be quite a challenge for a lot of brands to kind of feel like putting themselves out there. A lot of them people want to hide behind it, but actually getting out there will dramatically increase your brand and create a bigger point of difference. And I think it's really interesting at the moment. In the current market, we've seen the demise of colour, but actually look at Charlotte Tilbury, who's going from strength to strength, and look at Trinny London. She is out there, she's talking to people, she's digital, she's kind of creating that connection with people. So these founders that are at the helm of kind of brands are the ones that are really winning at the moment. So another great example of an indie brand going to cult status is, of course, Drunk Elephant. 7 years from kitchen table to an $850 million sale to the Shiseido Group. But there was so many elements to that it worked at the time, but actually kind of doing the same thing in the current market might not necessarily work. Tiffany Masterson at the time had the right positioning. It was clean, it worked because people wanted performance skincare as well that was clean. It was fun packaging. It was a move away from the apothecary style that was kind of quite prevalent at the time. And it was also really, really founder-led. But that was a lot about the timing and the market as well, because actually the market is now saturated with clean, sustainable, cruelty-free brands, ingredient-led, vegan. I see a lot of brands, and this is their tagline. This is what they're saying to people about, this is why you should buy me, because I'm cruelty-free, I'm vegan, I'm sustainable. But actually, these are the facts about the brand. These are not enough of a differentiator. So it doesn't create that emotional connection with the brand, with a customer. It doesn't create that, why should I buy it? So getting that compelling tagline is absolutely crucial to every brand that wants to scale. And whether that's a brand that you're scaling or it's an established brand, it's constantly reviewing how you're communicating that to customers. It can be super hard to define this, but once you've got it, it can really start to cut through the noise. So customers can understand very quickly whether the brand or the product is right for them. And also, don't be scared to be liked by everybody. I think lots of people think, well, I don't want to narrow down or niche down too much because I know I've got customers in different demographics. But actually, you don't need to be liked for everyone. There's customers out there that are very, very diverse. So actually, the more you niche down, the easier it often is. This is something I work with brands a lot on kind of a one-to-one basis, is kind of really nailing that point of difference in the market and then how it's communicated as well. Because it's absolutely crucial to have that positioning and also be really confident about your positioning as well and understanding it. And it's also okay to evolve this, to change it, to pivot. A couple of examples that I absolutely love is that Google for the first 2 years used to be called Backrub and Nike used to be called Blue Ribbon. I mean, nobody remembers that, but actually all of these brands evolve, the biggest ones. So what can you do to increase market share, I suppose, whatever the size of your business? I suppose the first action you can take is really thinking about people buying from people. So if you're a founder, get out there, create that visibility, create your brand story, and create that connection to customers. Really position yourself as a thought leader in your industry and kind of a mover and a shaker. What's your mission? What's your purpose? And how are you trying to help more people, whether that's customers or kind of a shift, I suppose, in industry behavior? If there's no founder, it's about creating that emotional connection. People want to really trust a brand and actually kind of ambassadors really help. We're seeing a lot of the big brands take on celebrity ambassadors or creative directors, but actually people often want something or somebody that they relate to that kind of looks like them, feels like them, and has similar problems to them as well. So really think about ambassadors that have got the same values or have kind of solving some of the problems that you could be potentially for customers. So this is why an indie brand scales. It's generally through the founder's vision. And it's crucial to keep revisiting your brand's purpose and your brand's mission. Don't lose this. And actually, as we see some big brands scale, some of them are starting to lose this. And even if they still have founders at the helm, or maybe the founders have left, but they've got that brand name there, I suppose some of this direction can get lost, some of this sense of purpose. And I think we're seeing that with some of the kind of more established brands that have been bought by the big players and the big groups, that actually that's why they're losing market share. They're struggling to continue to create that emotive connection. Again, this is another reason why brands like Glossier is still so huge. So some of their key things are, it's still very got the vision of the founder there. It's got an amazing community. It's kind of created those raving fans. They've really got that hype. And again, this is what I advise people to think about the whole customer journey. People often spend a lot of time thinking about brand awareness. How do I get my brand out there into more places? Which of course is super important to building your brand. But actually, how do you take your existing customers from loyalty, so they buy your brand again, second, third, fourth time. But actually, once you've got loyalty, there's a further stage on that. It's creating brand advocates. And this is where the hype comes in. You want your best customers to be raving about your brand to their friends, because ultimately this is free PR. So how do you create those raving fans? What do they love about your brand, and how can they be sharing, I suppose, more information? What tools are you giving them, and rewards to be able to tell their friends about it? Because ultimately, this is where that flip and that turning point of going from I suppose, an indie brand to like the most hyped and talked about brand comes from. Another great thing that I'm seeing at the moment is the power of user-generated content. And 70% of customers trust user-generated content more than branded content. So it's a huge opportunity. We saw a bit of a wobble a couple of years ago with reviews online and fake reviews. But actually, using user-generated content, whether it's photos or videos from customers, the transformation of videos of a before and after picture can be so compelling, and people see somebody and it looks like them, or they can see a problem that they've got, whether it's kind of a skin condition or it's kind of frizzy curly hair and then it looks amazing, or it's sleek smooth hair. The brands that are using this is really powerful. It's also really valuable because it saves you a huge amount of time on content creation, because to reward customers for sharing this, not only is it helping you convert to more customers, it's also a great percentage of your content strategy as well. So really it's thinking about reviewing your brand values and how you use these to connect with your customers' brand values, having a razor sharp mission and a point of difference. So what is your true USP in the market, and how are you marketing this and selling this as well? So again, think about that Charlotte Tilbury example. So you really then need to be communicating clearly and consistently with customers about why your brand and why your product is right for them. There is so much content out there, particularly in the digital sphere now, over the last 12 months, but it's critical to be focused on your target customer as well. Another key point is making sure you have the infrastructure and the support to scale your business. So you can't do everything. What do you need to outsource, and what expertise and advice do you need to get to where you don't necessarily have that yet? And also those fresh perspectives can be really valuable to you. When you're running a brand, whatever size of business you are, you of course are immersed in that brand, but it's so good to have that fresh perspective from somebody else that kind of knows the market, which is often the way that I help brands. I could talk for hours on this subject, but I would love to hear questions from you. And if you do want to hear more kind of about my thoughts on this, please head to my website. I recently did a trend presentation about the post-pandemic world for kind of retail and consumer behaviour. So you can download that from my website. And I've also got an event next week, which is a 2-part workshop and group coaching, which is about creating a vision for your brand using the strategies that are inspired by the most successful global brands. So you'll come away with a clear strategy for your brand in a fun way, a compelling way, and the opportunity to ask me any questions as well. So I will put a link in the chat as well, and with a little promotion code for the event if you want to come next week. So I'd love to hear from you and whatever questions that you may have. I think you're on mute.
I'm on mute. There we go. I'm off mute now.
Wonder not just me that does that.
No, of course. It's the first time I've done it this week, so I'm quite proud of myself. So thank you very much, Wiz. You provided some great tips that I'm sure people would be able to take home away with them. I've got a question because you mentioned obviously Charlotte and Trini and Emily from Glossier and things like that, and the power of founders and personality. The ones you mentioned, they all historically have had media profiles. What tips do you have for founders who don't have that historic profile but would like to tell their founder story? Yeah,
that's a great question. And I see so many founders that don't use LinkedIn or utilize LinkedIn. And this is super exciting opportunity for people. But actually, every founder has been through an amazing journey to get to where they are. They've generally seen a gap in the market. They've seen a problem that needs to be solved, often with themselves. They've gone away, they've researched this problem. They've probably been doing this for a good 2 or 3 years before they've even launched their brand. So actually, they think, well, who am I? I don't have this profile. But do you know what? These founders, you're experts, you're absolute experts, because you've gone into this rabbit hole of creating this brand, and you need to get out there and tell people about everything you've learned. And it's not just about what you've learned about creating your product and kind of your reasons why, it's also your entrepreneurial journey. People can really relate to that as well. What are you finding hard? What have your successes been? Really celebrating those things. And it's not about posting on LinkedIn. Of course, have your business page on LinkedIn so people can look that up as definitely a number one. I see a lot of people that don't have a business LinkedIn page. And it's not about just posting, these are my new products, buy these, which you can of course do once in a while. But it's saying, this is everything I've learned. This is kind of the journey I'm going on. This is kind of our goals. Mm-hmm. And also put yourself forward for panels. If you've launched a clean or green brand, go and get on a stage and have a debate about ingredients or clean versus not clean or synthetics, or create that debate. Put your positioning in the industry, because it's not just about customers, it's getting that cut through in the industry as well. Connect with a lot of people. LinkedIn, I think, is one of the most valuable resources. There's no algorithms. People can see what you post, people see what other people comment on there, and believe in yourself. You are an expert in your field. So yes, these people do have media profiles, but you are an expert as well. So it's about really thinking about that. And sometimes you need to work with someone on that. It's like, okay, or kind of talk to your family and friends. But if you went back 3 years ago in your journey, what have you learned? Just make a list of everything you've learned. Then all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh wow, yeah, okay, I know quite a lot here.
Sometimes it's that confidence boost, isn't
it?
And that you
always.
Need. And LinkedIn's a really good tip. I think people a lot focus on Instagram and TikTok and things like that in beauty, but LinkedIn's so powerful, as you've said. So have a couple of questions come in, so thank you for sending those. So we've been asked, is it possible to identify stages in the journey of an indies brand to the cult? So I guess, when do you know you become a cult brand?
So I think this is, it's a really interesting question. And I think it's that sudden like hype, everyone's talking about it. Mm-hmm. I think the positioning of your brand, I think I see quite a flip point where it's all of a sudden you're pitching to everyone, you're trying to get in the magazines, you're trying to get into the retailers, and you're like, literally, it's like a constant feels like an uphill battle. But all of a sudden, somebody starts to say, contact, oh, can I feature this? Or, oh, I've seen your brand from a buyer, would you like a meeting? Mm-hmm. And then I think those are the key things. You're like, whoa, all this stuff is starting to coming to me. And I think it's, you put in all that legwork and all that kind of blood, sweat and tears over however many years, then all of a sudden people are coming to you and you're like, okay, this is it. This is the rise and I'm off. That's the key thing.
So watch out for the switch, basically.
Yeah.
I like that. I got one from Jo, so thanks, Jo. And she's asked, what tips can you give indie brands who want to grow their brand communities?
Grow their communities. I think events is a really interesting way to connect with them. Sometimes Facebook groups, again, it depends on your demographic and profile of people using Facebook. I think people use Facebook groups generally are kind of slightly older, probably 35, 40 plus.
Yeah.
But that can be a really valuable way. And actually, Trini London, go and check her group out. It's quite amazing community of women that are just empowering each other. And they're not really talking necessarily about the products. They're just, talking about confidence and the confidence that she empowers with people. So that can be a really powerful way. But do events. What do people want to hear about? So, and they probably want to hear your story, or just do a meet the founder event. Do a Zoom maybe, and see their faces, have a chat with them, and then ask them what else that they want to hear from you. So I get that two-way dialogue going. I think Instagram story questions is always really valuable. But have a few chats with them, direct message them, have a phone call with a few, do some focus groups.
I guess also thinking of the lifestyle of the consumer, because I think if I'm correct, I think Glossier, some of the most popular posts are pictures of dogs with their products, or boyfriends in stores and things like that. So about the lifestyle of the consumer, definitely. So I guess there is there must be a temptation for new brand owners and entrepreneurs. They've seen cult brands out there to almost like want to copy and paste what they've done to try and mimic the success, which is a compliment. But what do you think about brand owners feeling that temptation?
You need to go in your own direction and weave your own way. There isn't a cookie cutter approach to any of these brands. And again, it's about having that magic formula. What is that? But actually, you've created this unique brand, and it's about continuing to evolve that and connect with the customer. And yet looking at some of those brands, but don't just copy everything. Just think, is this right for my brand? Is this what my customer wants? Because ultimately, where does your customer want to be buying your brand from? What experience do they want? What content do they want to be hearing about from you? Look at people for inspiration. But I wouldn't look at just one brand and think, okay, I need to do what they're doing. Because that can certainly be a bit of a trap you fall into, and then you think, oh, why isn't this working? Look at a few different brands for inspiration and think, what are they doing well? What are they not doing so well? Because not every brand is perfect either.
No, that's true. And something we're seeing quite often in the industry at the moment is, to create hype, it drops, aren't they? Like limited edition runs to create that hype around a launch. What do you think about that technique?
I think it's don't launch a product for launching's sake, because I think particularly in the current climate, just make sure your product there's a reason you're launching your product. It aligns to the kind of collection you've got at the moment, and there's definitely a desire and a need for that. There's lots of other ways of creating marketing activations. And actually, the biggest brands, 80% of the sales come from 20% of the products. And I know that from all of the big brands that I worked with over the years, being kind of stocked in big retailers. But it's about that constant marketing activation. And you'll see that from the biggest brands like the Lancôme Genifique. They're constantly promoting that because it's one of their best sellers. So just think about how you can create new activations around your existing products. And I think one of the best ways of doing this is collaboration, particularly when you're an independent brand. Collaborate with other like-minded brands, but in a different product category. So you might be skincare, but actually, or you could collaborate with a home fragrance brand, or with a yoga instructor, or kind of a breathwork teacher, or all sorts of things. So think about what else your customer is interested in and collaborate with different people, because you both have audiences and you're both looking to grow them.
Do you have any examples, just in case anyone wants to go and quickly and Google them after this to inspiration?
Oh, blimey. Gosh, off the top of my head, I can't think of any that I suppose are live at the moment. I mean, I see lots of competitions out there of people collaborating. I'd be wary of competitions and if you're attracting the right audience, but I think it's much more valuable to be creating events with people. So, and there's a lot more independent service providers out there, kind of, particularly the fitness industry and coaches and things like that. So I think that's a good way to promote people.
Absolutely.
And yeah, not off the top of my head.
No, and some of the people who will be watching today and on demand and things like that later will be from small brands and perhaps or just developing their teams, I guess. What obviously people make a brand and a company. What advice do you have for people for building the right team?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. This is why I've got a membership and I work with a lot of brands that are solopreneurs and actually teaching them how to outsource, because you can start outsourcing for the paid intern for less than £100 a month. And this is where I see brands get really overwhelmed because they're literally trying to have every hat on and do everything. So it's really starting to identify is what could you outsource, what are you good at, what don't you like, what do you need some support on. And there's lots of freelance people that you can use, whether they're experts or it is somebody at a junior level as well. What I would say about paid interns is they're digital savvy. They're kind of 20 to 22. They've probably had work experience already. They're studying social media. They're digitally native. So somebody scheduling your social media posts for you is just going to really, really help your time, your headspace to be able to think about the bigger picture, whether it's content and copywriting or it's email marketing. I think there's lots of things you can start thinking about scaling. And actually you can learn from these people as well, which is what's super exciting. So when you're thinking about a team, it's what is a team really, and it's it doesn't have to be full-time permanent people and thinking you're not there yet. It's all about the stages and how you start to build that.
Wonderful. Well, that's all we've got time for today. Well, not today with you because you'll be back later for the panel, which we're excited for. So yeah, make sure you're tuned in for that for everyone watching. So thank you, Wiz, and it's been a pleasure, and you've provided lots of tips for people. And yes, thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.